such an hour.
Is this something next? Okay.
Recording in progress.
All right, it is now 7 o'clock. I call to order our meeting for Monday, October 7th. For all those that can, please rise for the Pledge of Allegiance. Amanda, you want to take roll call, please?
Councilmember Rounds,
Here.
Councilmember Burke,
Here.
Councilmember Dowdy,
Here.
Councilmember Hall,
Here.
Councilmember Freimark,
Here.
Councilmember Houston,
Here.
Councilmember Friend.
Here.
All right, with that, citizen communications for items not on the agenda. Was there, my bad. I failed to get the sheet. Nope, we got it. I don't have anyone on the sheet, but is there individuals in the room that would like to speak for items that are not on the agenda? Come on up.
Do I speak to you guys?
Uh-huh.
My name is Christine Stelzer, and I live on Embassy Loop. My property is adjacent to the Woodland Creek subdivision, which is, I think, called Alder and Ash now.
Correct.
Back in 2020, I sat in on a Zoom call for the development of that project. And I didn't have any problem with the fact that the land is going to be developed. That is not a problem. The problem that many of us had with adjacent lots there was the runoff from all the drainage that comes off of Green Mountain down into that area. So my understanding was that the original plans were accepted by the city. But when the project began and started, lots of things started changing. And one of those things was the drainage. They originally had no houses directly behind us. They had a triangle that came off of that mountain, that section. But then they decided to put houses in, and they wanted to put ditches similar to swales. So now I learned that they're not the guy from Holt Homes told me that they weren't going to do that. They were going to put in infiltration ditches. So I said, okay, well, what's the process with that? He said, well, they do a flow test. Then I called the city and they said, no, they don't do a flow test. So what do they do? I got a diagram from the engineer that showed what it's supposed to look like. I have been taking notes for 18 months. I have been taking photographs, videos. I know exactly what's been done behind my property. And when he sent the diagram for the infiltration ditches, they did not match. Now the city signed off on those in June, and they'd never been inspected. And so on August 22nd, the inspector came out and they dug it up. They had no drain rock, no gravel, no filter paper, and no filtration pipe. So they started to redo it. But when they redid it, they still did not do it right. It is not the correct width, and I know the city does not want to believe it, but I have gone out there and I have measured the equipment. I took pictures of the ditch as they were digging it. Nobody from this city has seen that. They don't want to see it. But it is not correct. And it's also not in the location where the engineer said that it's supposed to be. It is supposed to be 5 foot from the property line, and it's 14 feet from the property line. When they built the patios behind me a couple weeks ago, they rinsed them off, and all that drainage went right down to the barrier. So it didn't go in the ditch like it was supposed to, and it wasn't that much water. So I want to know what's going to happen when the rains come and the ditch is incorrect. I have flood insurance, but they're not going to be required to have flood insurance, and they sit 3 to 4 feet higher than my property. And I know water runs downhill.
So, with that, I know that you are out there taking pictures daily and doing that and all that. We scheduled a meeting and we held a meeting with Travis, with Riley. I can't see Riley there.
Have you had a meeting with the engineer?
Correct. Correct. And the engineer, this all meeting was there. Engineer. We brought Holt Homes in and had a discussion. Travis or Riley, do you want to provide some color and comment from that meeting?
My name is Travis Goddard. I'm the Community Development Director for the City of Woodland. So the original design for the subdivision included a preliminary stormwater report, and it is simply designed to ensure that there is drainage facilities can be implemented on the site. The final design could go in a couple directions, so the preliminary design might not match the final design. And part of that is they do flow testing or infiltration rate tests as part of the final engineering process to see how much water can be absorbed into the ground. So depending on what that infiltration rate is, will determine the final size of the infrastructure or the stormwater ponds that get built. So they're quite often, and it is normal for the preliminary design to change slightly. So if they indicated originally there might be ditches, that is just showing that it is possible, but their final design will ultimately depend upon what the engineer chooses as the best way to infiltrate that. The issue of the runoff on the surface, because it is an unfinished lot and it just has dirt on it right now, there is nothing that would prevent that runoff. That's what the erosion control fence is for. But ultimately, in the end, that lot will have a final grading plan, and it will have grass and also landscaping and various infrastructure will be installed. And that will act to prevent the water from running off directly. It's designed to slow it down, to funnel it for infiltration into the ground. And so there's a lot of reasons why it may have just gone down to the erosion control fence, but that's why the erosion control fence is there, because we predict that there will be runoff that will leave the site. So these are normal construction growing pains. So it's not necessarily...
They did not follow the plan by the engineer, and you guys don't want to admit it.
So my understanding is that they had installed some incorrect materials and that our inspector had caught it, but they hadn't fixed it. And you happened to complain between when it was caught and when it was fixed.
It's
And
still not the way the plan
so
is.
the apparent might be that we didn't correct it until after you fixed it, but my understanding is it already had been caught by inspector and they were waiting for the correct materials to be delivered. So we are aware that there were some issues that needed to be correct, and our inspector has been out to the site and corrected it, inspected that it was correct.
The inspector never came out after they put it in. I took pictures, my neighbor took pictures. Nobody, they covered it up, nobody saw anything. There's a problem with who actually calls for the inspections.
My understanding is that the inspector is out there every day, and that the engineering inspector do have records of that. And Riley might be able to correct me on that, because he's actually in coordination with them.
Tuesdays and Thursdays that he comes out.
That's for the building inspector. The building inspector only does the structures themselves.
Well, there's a huge disconnect between what you guys think is happening and what's really happening. And personally, when I go out there and take a picture and somebody on those tractors says, "Are you from the city?" I'm thinking, you guys ought to know who's from the city. After 18 months, they ought to know. And nobody knows.
So, again, they have contractors, subcontractors. We can't expect multiple individuals out there to know who's from the city, who's not. I mean,
Okay, I'm just
I mean,
saying, most
again.
people know.
Correct. But I'm just saying, I mean, I have somebody who built my house. I had multiple subcontractors, contractors that were there. They're not gonna know who's from the city, who's not. They're not even gonna know which subcontractors, are from there. So, Riley, did you have something that you wanted to throw in here, sir?
No, I think that Travis covered it pretty well.
Well, I'm still waiting for the as-built that you guys signed off on. Because that should show what the engineer allowed. I'm still waiting for that, because I'm taking this to my insurance company, my FEMA insurance, because I have to pay insurance, but they don't. Now, John from Holt Homes seems to think that if we have a problem, we're just gonna be able to go through somebody else's insurance like that HOA. Well, that's not how it works. It would come off of our insurance that we pay on our property. I've already dealt with cracked exterior, cracked interior, and I went to their bonding agent, and he came out and said, no, we didn't do any of that. That's pretty pathetic.
So we do have as-bills for the project, and I've been in contact with you multiple times
I
through
requested
email.
them 3 weeks ago.
So is that through public records request?
I did, I requested
Okay,
them
we
through
will
my
follow
email.
up with that tomorrow, and we'll make sure that you get a copy of those as-bills.
Okay,
So,
thank you.
Thank you. Questions, comments from council? Anyone else in the audience for items not on the agenda? Anyone online that would like to speak about something not on the agenda? Okay. With that, move to agenda approval.
motion to approve.
Second?
Motion, second. Douglas, JJ, sorry.
Councilmember Rounds,
Aye.
Councilmember Burke,
Aye.
Councilmember Dowdy,
Aye.
Councilmember Hall,
Aye.
Councilmember Freimark,
Aye.
Councilmember Houston,
Aye.
Councilmember Friend.
Moving into reports of city council.
I attended last week's chamber meeting, and they're in the process of having the people that are running for different offices. And so and I think it's gonna run here 2 or 3 more weeks, but if anybody is interested in who is running and what they've got to say, be sure and attend the council meeting, or the city chamber meeting.
So tomorrow is Joe Kent.
Yes,
The following week is Marie Perez.
right.
The following week after that is Reuter. And
No, Raider.
you're right, Raider, my
Reuter
bad.
was the
Reuter was
first one
already there, it's
last week,
Raider that will be
yes.
coming. And then, after that is Jennifer Raking
Right.
from the port. So, any other comments? I have Mr. Hall.
I just wanted to say how, I guess the word would be shocked and saddened we were at the loss of our fishing guide, Michael Schufelt. But I wanted to say, a word of gratitude to the city and all the people that came to help with that. The compassion and the mercy that was shown is overwhelming, and it's an unspeakable loss. But the community really stepped up, and I just think the community should be commended for that. That's what makes a great community.
Yep. Absolutely. Ms. Dowdy?
Yes, myself and Councilman Friend attended our first joint meeting with the port and with the DWR today, and that was a great start. We got to tour the actual old firehouse, and to my surprise, and all the horror stories I've heard of the building, I was just pleasantly surprised at how well kept the building is. And hopeful of what we can come to see. First step is just to get it started at what the building needs, but it was a good meeting, good groundwork, and look forward to seeing where we go from here.
Just agree, and I wanted to say that it was really great to see how all the cities kept up that building. Regular inspections in the elevator, it's clean, nothing disturbing going on inside. So, and a lot of the stuff that we had kind of assumed was wrong has been abated already. So it's, you know.
Yeah. So $40,000 was spent in 2023 to get it to that shape. It does have quarterly elevator inspections that are required. As long as that elevator is in commission, we still have that. So, 100%.
And I think also in addition to that, just the openness of there's no agenda or plan in mind for other than inspecting the building, seeing what it could be, what it is today, what the different cost considerations might be for remodel versus does it make sense to tear it down and rebuild something else, or does it make sense to fix up the building itself? And just a great spirit of collaboration that took place today.
Excellent. Any questions or comments from anyone in the audience about that meeting that they had, or from council? Ms. Smith?
My question is, okay, the 100
Speak into the mic, please.
My question is, the 100 Davidson, what is going to happen to the little Woodland Community Center? I know did you discuss that at all, or is this totally?
Now you're mixing apples and
Yeah.
oranges, my friend, but.
Well, I do
will-
that.
So,
Okay.
when we get to the budget part here, you'll see the old community center, which is currently community center. We have in the budget, $125,000 for a new foundation for that, so that we can, revitalize and keep using that.
Okay, sorry.
Yeah.
Oh, one more. I also want to say that this Friday is homecoming, so if you're from Woodland, come join for homecoming. If you're not, it's going to be a great night. The 5 princesses will be escorted out onto the court with old cars instead of a limo this year, so it'll be a little different. So it's exciting, and so come on out, enjoy, watch some football.
Okay, any other items from council? Okay, reports of standing committees, Public Works.
I'll report on Public Works for tonight. At 6:02, we met, Councilmember Houston, Councilmember Primark, myself, and Riley were present. Some of the items that we discussed, filter restoration, so our freshwater filters 2 and 3 are both scheduled to start in November. It's 8 months to complete that restoration. We'll start with 2 and then move to 3 once filter 2 is complete. So we always have 2 operational filters to keep fresh water going into the city. Good stuff there. We had no water quality complaints in the month of September. And some good news from water treatment. Tim passed his wastewater collections 2 exam, and Tyler passed his water treatment plant operator 1 exam. So that's great because that means we have somebody to back up should we need that support in Public Works. Updates on sewer. Lift station 15, which is near the new subdivision. We had SCADA controls added to that, so it's remote monitoring to make sure that if something's going on with that, it can easily be corrected. Kind of a downside, we did lose power twice and had to deploy generators to those. Just if anybody doesn't know, if the power goes out, those lift stations that move the sewer water through have to be powered somehow, so we have to deploy a generator and kind of chain them together to keep the power going. The new lift stations have generators built into them. Eventually, as we replace things, hopefully we'll have more of those deployed throughout the city. There's a wastewater treatment decant facility, so today the city's paying to truck off solids, and it's pretty expensive. And we're moving to get a decant facility to make that something that we can just have waste control pick up and move away for us, rather than trying to haul it off and pay the extensive fees. For sewer pipes, all of A Street and 110 feet of B Street, the mains were cured, so basically inserting a new pipe within, basically creating a new pipe in the current sewer pipe, which helps with the infiltrate. So kind of ideas, the water level comes up and it gets into that pipe, and that's more sewage treatment that we have to do on water that's really just storm water. And then you get kind of corrosion and things that infiltrate that pipe. Street maintenance, the downtown area, the curb painting has been completed. In South Pekin and 5th, paving project is complete and is set to be striped Wednesday, Thursday of this week. And then one other thing that we kind of discussed is October 26th is Make a Difference Day. So doing projects and helping community members out on that day. And that's what I've got for Public Works.
Questions or comments on that? Anyone in the audience or up here on City Council? Before I jump into the reports of city officers, the one thing I will talk about with the Make a Difference Day. So we have 5 or 6 senior citizens that have reached out asking for volunteers to help them on that day, from yard work, landscaping, items. They've heard about it. They were worried and thought it was going to cost them. There is no cost to them. So there are citizens in our community that are in need, would like help from our community. So I would urge anyone sitting up here to definitely sign up to volunteer to help these individuals out. And Riley's team, Kathy Morris, is doing a great job coordinating that for 3 weeks, 4 weeks from today, or from 2 days ago. So any questions on that, call 799-225-7999. Okay. Moving into reports of city officers. I'm going to see if Gibbs, Riley, anyone has something they want to say?
Two things.
Give him a mic, please.
So, I don't want to get it wrong, so let me make sure I get there. So this morning, Destination Hope and Recovery Washington sent a couple of reps down here from Longview. Gave us resource cards and a QR code so we can refer individuals who may have addiction problems or even with homeless issues. They also help with homes as well. So like if it's juvenile problems inside of a home, it doesn't have to just be strictly addiction or mental health related. So they're a lot like behavioral health units, but that's free to us. It's a state thing, and I have all the resources for our officers, so it gives us something to actually look into when we're dealing with these issues instead of just saying, hey, Woodland doesn't have resources, go somewhere else. So that's super positive. And the other thing is, last council meeting I wasn't able to be here, but I just wanted to tell every one of the council members, like, I'm very grateful. Thank you for the vote of confidence in the interim chief's position, and the citizens that spoke on my behalf too. That was very overwhelming. Our guild, our police guild, was very supportive, and the sergeants that showed up that evening to speak as well. I got home that night and I was watching it on my phone, and my wife looked at me and she put her hand on her heart and says, it just warms my heart to hear people say nice things about you. So I don't know if that's a positive or a negative thing, but it was very appreciative, and no matter where this role goes, I'm going to be here to earn it, like I had said. So I just want to say thank you. That's all I got.
Excellent. Along with that, now rolling into the mayor's message. So this week, a few of us from the guild, sergeants, chief, myself, met with some neighbors in the Marywood neighborhood at their city, or at their clubhouse. Wonderful things were said about the chief and the police department. So just wanted to echo some of those things and say thank you, Chief. I appreciate your work on that. So I wanted to get into Make a Difference Day. Most of my stuff is around the preliminary budget we will get into. I know that it's a packed agenda, but if there's any questions, comments for me, I will bring those out there. But if you have anything for me now, let's move on then. Consent items. Oh, hold on a second. Upcoming events. Planning Commission meeting has been canceled. We don't have a quorum with our Planning Commission. City Council meeting, the next meeting will be here in 2 weeks. We will dive into the budget a little bit further. And then the 26th is the Make a Difference Day. Into the consent items.
Making a motion to approve the consent items.
Second.
Comments? Questions? Amanda?
Councilmember Friend,
Aye.
Councilmember Houston,
Aye.
Councilmember Frymark,
Aye.
Councilmember Hall,
Aye.
Councilmember Dowdy,
Aye.
Councilmember Burke,
Aye.
Councilmember Rounds.
Aye.
Moving into action items. Action item B, approve vouchers.
Motion to approve.
Second.
Comments, questions from community or from those online about the vouchers? Ms. Butler.
I'm sorry, I haven't followed those real close to know if like a $15,000 payment to the state auditor is just like something normal we have, that we have to pay quarterly or some
We pay
kind
for our annual audit.
Okay, paying for the audits.
Yep.
Okay.
The audit isn't free.
Right, and then when are the results to those audits? Are they made known?
So there was a preliminary results that came out, I wanna say 10 days ago, call it the last week, that said that we had no major concerned items. However, we will get the next layer down where it talks about things that they did find that need improvement and we need to make correction on.
Okay, great, thanks.
With that, Amanda?
Councilmember Hall,
Aye.
Councilmember Frymark,
Aye.
Councilmember Houston,
Aye.
Councilmember Friend,
Aye.
Councilmember Dowdy,
Aye.
Councilmember Burke,
Aye.
Councilmember Rounds.
Aye.
The ayes have it. Moving into action item C, authorize the mayor to sign contract with Point Monitor for security and fire alarm systems. Any questions, comments from the audience before we move into a discussion from council or action items?
I have one. So I noticed, it was just brought to my attention, the quote that has the alarm for the evidence room did not include a heat or smoke detector. We already currently have that, so that's a necessity for the evidence room. Again, it's not included in the current quote, so I don't know if that just needs to be updated or
I
how we
can
proceed.
answer that for you, Chief. So it's not included because those devices did not need to be updated. They just need to be added to the monitoring system. So it's part of the monitoring part of the side, so they're not getting updated. They'll just tie into the system you already have. Yeah.
Excellent. Any questions, comments from the community? Switching over to the council then.
Motion to approve.
Second, I think we already did that, didn't we?
No, we didn't.
Oh,
I gave the
okay.
community
Okay,
comments.
second.
I'm just gonna throw out that I had an opportunity to talk to Riley about the alarm system and kind of the nuances to our current monitoring, and verified, you know, what's the cost to just upgrade our current system, keep the monitoring. The monitoring costs are significantly less with the new vendor, and the cost to replace, I think it was just one building's systems would be almost equivalent to replacing all the building systems, so it just makes a ton of sense to go this route from conversation.
Yeah, it has a payback of less than 3 years on this whole deal. And it makes it, one, I strongly feel this is a lot more secure. It provides us with access, in a sense, our security access. Right now, depending on which building you're going into, now each person will have their access and will know exactly which building they went to. I think this is just an improvement and upgrade for our city.
And having proper fire monitoring, which is.
100%, yep. So,
And at a better cost.
yep, 100% agree. Okay, with that, Amanda?
Councilmember Friend,
Aye.
Councilmember Frymark,
Aye.
Councilmember Houston,
Aye.
Councilmember Hall,
Aye.
Councilmember Burke,
Aye.
Councilmember Dowdy,
Aye.
Councilmember Rounds.
Aye.
Action item D, authorization for mayor to sign easement agreement with Public Utility District Number 1 of Cowlitz County. Citizen comment, questions on this one here. Clarity is when those poles, lights were originally put in down at Horseshoe, those easements were not all there. This gets us ship shape with the PUD. They have some work to do down there, some ties on a couple of the electrical poles, and so this makes it so when they go do their work, we're not giving anything away, it's just setting us up.
Make a motion to approve action item D, authorize the mayor to sign easement agreements.
Second?
Ms. Hogan?
Councilmember Burke,
Aye.
Councilmember Hall,
Aye.
Councilmember Friend,
Aye.
Councilmember Houston,
Aye.
Councilmember Frymark,
Aye.
Councilmember Dowdy,
Aye.
Councilmember Rounds.
Aye.
Ayes have it. Moving into action item E, authorize the mayor to sign a PSA supplement with HHPR for Gun Club Sidewalk and Bike Lane and ADA project. Questions or comments from the community on this or anyone online? Come on up, my friend. Come on up, Jennifer.
So I'm Jennifer DeLuz. I live at the Woodland Shores. And I have not paid really close attention to what's going on with the bike lanes. I just know that they're coming. And so I just kind of wanted to put a public service announcement of my own out there. And I don't know where the funding and everything came from, but if anybody is on Cowlitz County News on Facebook, you will see the absolute wreck the bike lanes have made in Longview. A wreck. And they're too deep into it to stop. It would cost more money now to stop. So I guess just a word of caution, the state is handing out things for this and things for this. Nothing is free. And they're gonna want something in return down the road,
Yeah.
if not now.
100% agree with what you're saying. I've kind of kept an eye on that. Riley's back there shaking his
Right.
head. We have these conversations. Our bike lanes making it so that we're getting less road, less lanes for traffic. That is not what this is doing. We will still have the same number of lanes going up and down.
Okay.
Gun Club, I think this provides safety. We have,
Yeah.
several hundred homes back there, and I just think it's a way for, with Alder Ash going in,
Sure.
kids crossing, I think it makes sense
I agree with that.
that straight down there to have a bike lane.
Is there a time where you visualize bike lanes coming through right there by AM, PM and that whole section?
Well, that would be state.
That is,
so,
okay.
503, so that would be a different discussion we would have to have with
Okay.
them. Now I'm gonna go down a rabbit hole.
Okay.
Regarding the state.
Yeah.
As you look at that new subdivision that's going in River Rock on the riverside, and you look at, it's across from Norfolk, school, there's no crosswalk there.
Right.
Well, that kind of caught the state off guard. They have a new engineer. So there's a little bit of discussion there, not to say that they're gonna put one in there, not to say that there's gonna be anything lighted, but again, it's one of those things that city and us try to have conversations on. And Riley's back there waving a flag saying, let me speak.
Okay.
So as far as a crosswalk on Lewis River Road next to the school, I had a conversation with the state on Friday of last week, and they are fully aware of that issue, and they are looking to put in a lighted crosswalk at that location.
Oh.
So that's just kind of an update for that.
So,
That
totally
answers
aligned.
it. Yep, I was just cautionary, you know, nothing is free for real,
Yeah.
so.
Totally aligned with you there.
Okay,
So,
all right, thank you.
any questions or comments? Anyone else? Come on up, Ms. Shaw.
Yeah, I'm Jean Shaw, and you were talking about Gun Club Road? Is that what you're talking about, Gun Club?
Yep.
What are they gonna do with all those cars? Those cars park all the way down Gun Club on the one side. How are they gonna do a bike lane? They gotta get rid of the cars.
Well, the bike, or the cars are, if there's a bike lane, they are not allowed to park in the bike lane.
So they won't be able to park on either side, are you saying?
Well, Riley, are we putting, I believe a bike lane is going in on one side, it's not on both
Yes, so the bike
sides.
lane's gonna be on the east side of Gun Club as you're going down.
But there's cars on the west side,
Yes, correct.
all the way.
Yes,
And they'll be
there-
able to still park there, you can't park on the bike
Correct.
lane.
Yeah. I think it's gonna be a mess. No room. I mean, I'd love to see the bike park, but get the cars off the road. Bike lane is fine.
And again, with the cars, if they're moving every 24 hours, we can't tow them, we can't, as long as they're moving. How long? Have you called at non-emergency for cars that have been parked there longer than?
Yes, I
Okay.
And instead of that, I'm gonna go loud. Instead of that, they went and they were on the end of Rhododendron and Gun Club, and then they moved their car that is for sale, right, by Willow and Gun Club. So they just moved along, and it was longer than 24 hours.
So the key was there, they did move their car, correct, Maggie?
Yes. Yes, they did. It's still there. And it's their location.
Motion to approve.
Second.
Second.
Ms. Hogan?
Who was first? I didn't hear that. It was on the
I
screen.
said second.
Dowdy.
Okay. Councilmember Rounds,
Aye.
Councilmember Friend,
Aye.
Councilmember Burke,
Aye.
Councilmember Houston,
Aye.
Councilmember Dowdy,
Aye.
Councilmember Frymark,
Aye.
Councilmember Hall.
Aye.
The ayes have it. Moving into action item F. I appreciate you, Ms. Smith, for coming and speaking up. Action F, mayor recommendation to delay utility rate increase from 2024 to 2025, 2025 to 2026. Any questions or comments from the community before I have a dialogue and conversation on this? Okay, let's jump into this. So the study shows out there we need to be increasing our water rates. We need to do infrastructure. 100% agree. You'll never hear Todd say that we don't need to increase our funds to have rainy day to pay for infrastructure improvements. Our water lines are old, some are collapsing and different things, and they need replacement. 100% agree. The rate increase, it was implemented in 2023 with the resolution, said that there was an increase in 2024 and another one in 2025. The proposal that is here would say, okay, instead of 2024 and 2025, it would say it'll be 2025 and 2026. And that 5% increase, roughly, you're saying, well, wait a minute, are we putting ourselves backwards? 5% on our water is roughly $125,000 to $130,000 based on usage and that. Just this year alone, kudos to our Public Works Department. They have busted their rears starting since March, when we said, hey, enough is enough on no late payments, no, requirement to pay your water bill. We've collected, was it $462,000, Riley, of past due water bills. So again, our city is cash basis, so that's $462,000 that we have recovered and now have there that we didn't have previously. I think that our city, through all these rate increases, that $462,000 getting people to pay their bills, that we should delay one of these rate increases for a year.
I'm all for it. The only thing I want to know is that going to hinder us from being able to get any state funds or grants or whatever in case we needed it? Because that's the reason why we implemented this to start with.
We are on trajectory currently to build our reserves to get us the funds that we need for any kind of future loans through State Department of Drinking Health reserve loans, like we did for the Reservoir 4 project and the 2 filter rehabilitation loans. That's what it's based off of, is what is your reserve capacity to pay off these debts. So we are on the trajectory to have the funds available for that.
Okay.
Is that rate increase going to be the same if you delay it for a year?
Yeah, so what this proposal is it literally just takes resolution 776 and 774, I believe they were, for water, storm, and sewer, and it picks them up and says, instead of 2024, 2025, it literally picks them up and says 2025 and 2026. It keeps everything there. All it does is just move it out and picks it up. With that conversation, now that there's been a little bit more dialogue here, anything from the community, comments, concerns?
I fully support this.
motion or?
I make a motion to approve action item F, to
Second.
mayor recommend to delay utility rate.
Second.
Any additional comment? Ms. Hogan?
Councilmember Rounds,
Aye.
Councilmember Burke,
Aye.
Councilmember Dowdy,
Aye.
Councilmember Hall,
Aye.
Councilmember Frymark,
Aye.
Councilmember Houston,
Aye.
Councilmember Friend.
Aye.
The ayes have it. The time is now 7:40 and we'll move into workshop. Workshop G, ordinance number 1434, panhandling. So I would like to introduce Emily, who is our city attorney. She came down, and so she will have a mic. We will have conversation. Look forward to dialogue from the community, council. Here, 3 weeks ago at our last council meeting, conversation was brought up by a citizen. There's been a lot of social media posts about the city doesn't have no camping ordinances. We don't have a panhandling ordinance. The SCOTUS has made some rulings, Supreme Court, sorry, has made rulings recently that allows no camping ordinances. And so my recommendation and conversation here in council as well was we put together a couple alternatives, one for panhandling and the prohibited camping. There's two alternatives there that are included here, but we wanted to have conversation with the community and then also hear from our attorney, pros, cons, and then get a decision on what council would like to do going forward on that. So with that, I will open it up to anyone in the community first that has anything that they would like to say about panhandling. Let's talk about panhandling first. I guess, Emily, do you want to say a few things, pros, cons, your thoughts on this here? There you go.
Sure. As you alluded to, these both, I'll start with panhandling, kind of have a long history in the legal world as being sensitive to not censor speech or other conduct that people can't necessarily control. So with panhandling, the key in this one is to make sure that it is targeting conduct and not what somebody is saying as far as the panhandling nature. So not going after what they are asking for or anything like that, but the actions and reactions that cause people to feel unsafe and more of that kind of in-your-face activity. So there's always risk when you're dealing with these things that something could go awry, and often what I tell my clients is that I can't stop someone from suing you. I can just do my best to defend you if you do get sued. And I think both of these, or all that we have presented, is firmly kind of in the risk management from what I've heard from the community and what I've talked with the mayor and other staff regarding those. I'm happy to answer more questions on either of the panhandling or camping ordinances or the two versions that we have in the camping if there are specific questions.
I have a question. They're still able to panhandle, but just not be aggressive. Is that correct?
Correct. So someone standing there with a sign who's not making any gestures or motions or anything like that would be able to do that because that is a freedom of expression, and generally when you're in the right of way, that is the most public forum that people can make those kind of statements. It's the actions of getting to in people's faces or blocking traffic, creating a safety hazard, those kinds of things. And it wouldn't necessarily be specific to panhandling, so anyone who was also perhaps aggressively campaigning, who was blocking traffic or getting in your face or anything like that, that would be covered under a similar analysis in that case.
So on that, Sergeant Lip isn't here, but Chief, feel free to chime in with me. Exit 21, people can stand there, will be able to with their sign, but they won't be able to go out in the middle of traffic and literally putting that sign in their face. So it draws a line there of what then our officers can do.
And the fire department, when they do fill the boot, they can still be there as long as they're not creating havoc also.
Yes.
Yeah.
Correct, absolutely.
Okay.
Firefighters are pretty aggressive.
So, any other questions, comments from the community or anyone online, council, about the panhandling here? Come on up, Jennifer.
I'm a yellow light today. Because if you've been on Cowlitz County News on Facebook, that's not, it is a joke, but it's not, you will see the problems that they have. Doesn't it kind of contradict that, yes, you can panhandle, but you can't camp because that's still coming, right? So, I'm sure you guys all know, but by 2045, Woodland's supposed to grow to 11,000 plus people. And the panhandling thing, that's just really a slippery slope. And I swear when I first moved here, 2018 I think, that they were able to go around, because I remember them at the off-ramp, sending them on. So I guess I just want to go on record and say, man, if you let them, they will come.
So hold on a second. Chief, can you help me out here? On exit 21 at the off-ramp, there's that sign that sits back there 30 feet, 40 feet. So you can only go so far on exit 21, and then they get with the panhandling there.
Okay.
And Emily will chime in as well, because we've had this discussion with the freedom of speech. Somebody standing there with their sign, you know what I mean? And this is where the lawsuits happen. Wait, I can't stand here with my sign that
Right.
says, Todd's an idiot, but I can stand here. You know what I mean?
Oh yeah, I get that. So like,
I need $5, Todd's an idiot.
Yeah.
Well, that's okay, this one's not okay.
but so the panhandlers that come and they walk in between traffic and they walk off the that's not going to be allowed.
Correct.
Right. Okay.
But they come and go, there's nobody really resident that does it on a daily basis.
No, they're not. I don't. Yeah, I agree with that.
But Jennifer, that is what we're getting rid of, is the
Yeah.
aggressive in the traffic.
Yeah.
So, I guess a question maybe for legal, but Pacific Avenue, Safeway, kind of parking lot exit when you're trying to pull out, is that considered, because that's private property and it's a business, then they have to deal with it, or is that still under city jurisdiction? How does that work? Can that business owner call the city and deal with it, or?
I'm gonna let yeah.
So it's private property, and usually, like Safeway will contact us, but we can't force them off unless the business owner asks us to have them leave. And typically it's a contact of like, hey, you've been asked to leave, this is why, if you don't, you could be trespassed. But yeah, it's private property.
So really the main area we're dealing with is exit 21, because that's, yeah.
But also that side street there outside of Safeway, I can't think of where I call it the old Coca-Cola plant center, what is that?
Pacific or Columbia?
With that little side street there,
It's on Pacific.
is that Columbia?
I think so.
Yeah, it goes down to the old Coca-Cola, but you know,
Yeah,
that's
okay.
typically
Yeah.
where we see it.
Yeah.
So, does that answer your questions, Jennifer?
Yeah, it kind of does. I just just trying to keep Woodland, you know, keep Woodland, and not the next Civic Circle or Olympia or Portland Waterfront or.
True.
So, just wanted to say that.
Yep, thank you. Any other questions, comments? Come on up.
Will you be posting signs like over near Safeway? Because that's where I get approached all the time.
Do you get
I get approached like when I'm loading my car.
inside
Or-
Safeway parking lot?
Yeah, or when I first get there, a lot of times people come right up to the car.
That's Safeway's problem.
Yeah,
They have to call the cops.
they have to call.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yep. Any other questions, comments? Any changes to this that you want? I mean, again, we can't take action here,
Oh.
but if there's something that,
I thought it looked all right myself.
okay,
So I would like to ask our attorney if she's in full agreement to the wording.
Yes, we reviewed both this ordinance and then we proposed both of the camping ordinances, so any of the language before you has been approved by our office.
I hope so. So, okay. All right, we'll move into workshop item H, ordinance 1435 prohibited camping. Emily?
So we provided two versions of this for you. One of them is a slightly edited version of that mirrors Calamas, and that is the one that we were asked to look at and as a point of reference, essentially. And so we made some edits to that one. We also provided a more generic one. Again, camping is a little bit more of a touchy subject. We do recently have the Supreme Court case that overturned Grants Pass, which essentially said you couldn't have any of that. The issue in Washington and our Supreme Court is that our Constitution drops the unusual part of cruel and unusual punishment in that protection and just has cruel. The Washington Supreme Court has tended to follow along with the Ninth Circuit's reasoning, and the Ninth Circuit is the one that decided Grants Pass originally. So there's no cases out there to suggest that that is a possibility right now, but there is still a slight risk that Washington Supreme Court could decide that these are not appropriate ordinances. So the more generic one gives, I guess, less specifics for somebody to try and challenge. It still generally achieves your objective. I will note that I think that your nuisance and health and sanitation code could use some additional language to really help enforce the public health and safety standards that are really the concern around these types of ordinances. And so we can make some recommendations on those also. But moving forward with public camping, there are many cities that have done it, and there are many cities in Washington who have done it more aggressively than either of the ones that we've proposed here. You are in a line with your surrounding communities, so the one that mirrors Kalama is would be appropriate for you all. As a more conservative approach, the other one that we proposed is a slightly less risky adoption of that. So that those are the two ordinances that are before you, and I can answer any questions to those that you have.
So, because we're kind of mirroring the other cities in our area, should something pursue or ensue in Kalama, do we just monitor and then maybe have to adopt and adjust? Or what's your recommendation there? I mean, or is it constant vigilance of what's happening in the area and you advise?
Correct. It would be kind of what's going on in those other areas. And, you know, it's also that if somebody challenges that ordinance or something were to happen, you may be thrown in there as well, and then it's kind of a shared expense at that point, which is not as bad as, you know, doing it by yourself. I will note that the other cities that I looked at, specifically, I believe it was Kennewick and Richland, have a lot more aggressive ordinances currently, and they have a lot bigger populations. Some of the other cities, especially up north where I am, also have some more aggressive anti-camping ordinances that I would be more concerned about than where Woodland is. So it's really just kind of a risk measure of what you want to do. We monitor these things. We're a part of many of the municipal law groups and are regularly reading cases and would advise of any recommendations that are necessary. But there's always that chance out there. So.
And as written, protects the public right-of-ways, which has been a lot of the community concerns, like, hey, if somebody's on the sidewalk in front of my house, and we're like, well, it's not against the law technically, so this protects the citizens in that regard.
Correct. It's keeping those areas clear and free from interference that is going to result in, you know, people having to either step around them or, as I said, another avenue, and one that I think would really help complement this is updating your nuisance and health and sanitation codes, which would give some more teeth to those kinds of provisions, because that's oftentimes the complaints that we hear about garbage or other waste or needles, those kinds of things, or loud noises, people, you know, having kind of episodes and stuff that are problematic. So increasing those codes can also help supplement this so that this isn't the one necessarily you're always hanging your hat on if there is an issue, and you've got more defenses essentially.
So is that kind of our plan then, potentially, to move forward with that recommendation in addition to these?
So there's no action here, but I'm looking for recommendation from here. My recommendation coming into this meeting, discussions with Emily and talks, is the generic one puts us on our own island. It makes me nervous, where all of a sudden, we're out here on our own island. If somebody challenges that,
We're by ourselves.
we're by ourselves. And so that's why I'm sure she had the Kalama one, had her look at it and say, hey, could you mirror and see what it would look like there? Because again, if somebody challenges Kalama, challenges us, they're aligned, we're in this together. And I think the other key is the nuisance and sanitation code needs beefing up, and that will be something we'll have staff work on with Emily as well. But that was where my head was here. But again, I need council to make our decisions, and so I put forward, working with her, those two.
I think that makes good sense to have those two things paired together.
Melissa?
So is version 1 the one that mirrors Kalama's?
Hold on one second. I think so. Yes,
Okay.
it's
And-
the lengthier one.
Okay, and then my next question is, I know we were talking about having that truck that was filled to capacity, that looked like they were living out of the truck, over by Columbia, right?
Yeah, it's in Columbia.
Does this fall under,
That truck is
Right
no
there.
longer there, I believe.
Right, it isn't.
but something like that situation, would that fall under
Camping.
this?
Yes.
The same, okay. So my recommendation would be to go with camping version 1 moving forward, and to also look at updating our sanitation and such with Emily and making those stronger moving forward.
Any conversation, anyone else from the community online? Come on up, Deanna.
I brought literature. Deanna Holland with the Woodland Action Center. So, this ordinance, first off, I'm going to point out I was interested in that I didn't even recognize that the agenda didn't come out until yesterday. This morning, my emails were media reaching out to me in response of this ordinance. So that was kind of fun. First off, the language to the beginning of it, I am not a fan of, and I know people don't like it when I say that, but I'm not a fan of this because it states that there's this overwhelming explosion in the unsheltered population in our community, which the data doesn't support that. I'd like to see the data that supports that. I printed out some stuff from the Department of Commerce regarding Cowlitz County for the last couple years with a point-in-time count that doesn't support that, nor does the numbers that I collected in January. I understand this as a knee-jerk response to a particular incident, and there's no real way to navigate that one particular situation that was brought up in a previous council meeting. But we already have in 2023, council passed the one part that I noticed was not indicated when you list all of the sections of municipal code. The one that was not indicated was 9.52.150, where it already states overnight camping and occupying of or frequenting of the city parks from dusk till dawn is prohibited. So we already have that in our municipal code. Along with the unenforced, don't have your animals unleashed in the park and don't leave a mess. Those are all part of that particular section of our municipal code. The parts of this ordinance where we are fining unsheltered individuals is disturbing. It's almost like the comments I made at the previous meeting where everything I said doesn't work, and that's what we put into an ordinance. Finding somebody $250, then $500, and then $1,000, and then putting them in jail for 90 days isn't a solution. You've taken somebody who is literally at the lowest in their life, and we're going to fine them, and then put them in jail and make them the taxpayer's responsibility to clothe, house, and provide medical care for the next 90 days. That's not really fiscally responsible. Some of the other things that I wanted to point out, something that the city attorney didn't mention is that the current, the ACLU of Washington currently has a thing against the city of Spokane, and I think I mentioned that previously, for their anti-camping ordinance. So for people watching at home, things like, and I wrote this down, so forgive me if I'm reading it. Anti-camping and sentinel laws functionally criminalize homelessness, right? So the ACLU filed a complaint against Spokane, citing that criminalizing homelessness is cruel and therefore unconstitutional with the state constitution. That's the argument currently that they challenged in August. That hasn't went through its process yet. Woodland lacks any shelter space. So unlike some of these other cities that have a big, large population, places like Kalama and Woodland do have zero shelter space available. So my suggestion has always been, and I know the people of Woodland would absolutely not really be supportive of having a shelter in Woodland, which is why I've never proposed it. But my concern is if we are now going to use as a city, if our response is that the handful of folks who you might possibly see that are living in their car, if our response as a community is that we think the best we can do is put you in jail, okay, but I think there is a more compassionate response when the folks that I know to be chronically homeless in our community are lifelong residents of Woodland, people who've lived here 20, 30 years, or they are multi-generational. Their family has resided here for multiple generations, right? So I would love to have a more compassionate response. I understand that we need to accommodate people concerning certain situations. And I am not advocating for, hey, people can't pop a tent on our city sidewalks. That's never been anything I've ever supported. I am asking that we do not criminalize somebody who has no means to pay you. They have nowhere to live, so let's give them a fine that they cannot pay so that we can then put them in jail. That is not the best we can do as a society. It's not what I think the best we can do for Woodlanders. I would hope that if there is this overwhelming population explosion of unsheltered individuals, that then we as a community sit down and have the conversation that nobody wants to have, and what does it look like to respond to that? Does that mean that Woodland is at that point where we need to have a shelter or a dedicated place that responds to people in a housing crisis, mental health crisis, or addiction crisis? Because all of those things are kind of part of the same ball of wax that Woodlanders don't want to see in their community. But unfortunately, it's a fact. And that's what I would be advocating for, is that if that is the direction that this body of government wants to move the city, then I would ask that then we have a conversation about what that looks like down the road. Because as the economy becomes worse, and more people are at the end of their rope, right? You're gonna see more people in their vehicles, and they don't necessarily, you don't see them. They stay outside city limits for a very good reason. It's safer for them, because nobody in the county is gonna bother them. And we have places in this town, in the county, where people already live without access to running water, electricity, and the basic provision of having a flushing toilet. They don't even have that, yet they live in spaces that people are allowed to charge them rent for. So people get to live in inhumane ways outside city limits, you know. But so that's all I'm asking for is I totally get it. I don't know that people are running rampant pooping on the sidewalk, but per this, I mean, yes, that is a health issue, but I would ask that we have more of a compassionate response to the people who live here, regardless of whether or not they have shelter. And I'm sorry that I haven't been available to try to reach out and find the person that has upset the apple cart that's in a tent. I will do better with that. I do unfortunately have a real job that I have to do so I can pay my bills. But yeah, if anybody's interested in what the actual Department of Commerce numbers are for our county, I printed them out. I can always email them. But yeah, that was why I came. So thank you for allowing me to have the time to speak.
Nope, thank you for coming. Appreciate it. One thing I will say, you know, when we talk about different things, we do have individuals that use the bathrooms inappropriately, using the sink instead of the toilet. We have found we've had to lock the bathroom doors, put them on timers, so that they were shutting earlier. I mean, so Public Works has done a nice job trying to, you know, change it up a little bit, so it's not a set time every single day to kind of make it so that we don't have some of those things going on. So, any other comments here? Mr.
Yeah,
Harper?
I appreciate Deanna's comments, and I would like to, I think all of us would like to see what other resources the county might have available for us to access. If there's a place, I know this, I guess this is a second comment on that. What we decide to do eventually will only affect our city. We still have the off-ramp there that's state of Washington's park and ride. We can't control that. That's state, right? And we have people living in their cars there.
Not really.
No, we usually control it.
People,
We
people are
can
rarely-
control it?
Yeah.
People
No.
are rarely there for more than 48 hours. I count the cars there every day, so
Okay,
I don't see anybody living in their cars there.
all right. But am I correct that is that an area we cannot control?
So, Chief, do you want to explain why that tent that was there next to the airport lasted for less than a day, and yet some of these other tents inside the city limits are there?
So the property over there, they're speaking of the private property, right?
You're talking about by the
Down by the airport.
airport, yes.
Yeah, the property owner actually reached out to our police department and gave us a standing trespass order to keep people off that property. It doesn't belong to the city. That belongs to an individual who has a right to keep homeless people off his personal property.
Is there any way without fining them that we may have to wind up moving them someplace, but maybe not fining them, like she said, they're probably already destitute to start with, you know, but, I don't know.
Well, I was gonna say, I don't believe the first action wouldn't be to fine, it would probably be to warn, ask to move, and that's kind of the punitive if they can't relocate to a place that's allowed?
Correct. So generally, it's going to be a warning, and then the fine or jail structure if they're not complying. There are some cities who have looked at having basically like a relocation place. Those are all kind of policy calls, if that's a direction you want to go, that we would have to kind of flesh out a little bit more. But those are some of those kind of alternatives. Some people do more of the response, having like a community navigator type position that goes with the police to those kinds of responses, that connects people to different resources or can get them a ride somewhere. Enforcement of these types of things really is the difficult part for the reasons that she had kind of laid out. So that's really up to you guys on how you want to enforce it, and the police department.
And the longer they stay, the more rights they can acquire, so.
I'm sorry, I can't hear anybody up there.
Speaking the,
Oh, I said the longer they stay, a lot of times they can acquire more rights, so getting them out quickly is the best solution if there's a place where they can go.
did you guys have comment, or was it just the sound? Sorry. If you, come on up, come on up. We all have a voice in here, so. And I just want to make sure I understood it with you. Raise your hand if it was.
Yes, I would also like to be an advocate for the homeless guy, because he's my brother, and he has been a resident here for close to 30 years. You know him.
Yeah, I know.
You're friends with him on Facebook. So he is a good individual. After my mother passed away, he went completely downhill. And there's things to be said about a person that has mental health issues and addiction issues together. You know, they don't realize some of the things that they do. It doesn't mean he's a bad individual or he deserves to be booted out of the city because he is down on his luck. We need some sort of structure for them, for a place to go and help, because they're not going to get it themselves when they have addiction and mental health. It goes together, it goes hand in hand, and it's awful as his family to watch him go through that. It's awful to hear everybody so against this guy on the sidewalk that does, yes, he screams profanities. He has mental health and drug addiction issues. And I just think that, just like she was saying, giving him a fine is not going to help him. No, he got a fine because he was staying at the airport. He has gone around this town and he has picked up garbage for years. It's just something he has done because he is a good individual.
He's never hurt
okay?
anyone,
He's never hurt anyone, ever. And he too was over by the airport in his Jeep, another vehicle that I had bought for him because I have tried to help him through the years. And when the tires got slashed, he had no other choice. They got him out of there, and what did he get? He got a fine and everything else and had to go to court with money that he does not have, right? So now he's got a tent. He used to be out at the river. He left everybody alone. He was out at the river, but then he couldn't stay there anymore. They took him out of there too. So he's really just reaching for places to go, you know? And somebody with mental health issues, I can't help him. We need some sort of something that will help people like that. Some sort that gives us rights as relatives or as people to get them the help that they need. We don't need to find them and throw them in jail.
It's a state problem, actually.
Yeah.
We need more mental health facilities.
We absolutely do.
Yes.
We need a mental health and addiction facility
Right.
that goes hand in hand because they need that help.
Well, Chief Gibbs got some resources today given to him
Yes.
that I would suggest you grab and maybe look into.
Yes, I will.
That would help.
All right. Thank you,
Yeah,
guys.
finding him is not.
Wanted to say thank you for sharing your story and being willing
Of
to come up
course.
and tell us.
All right. Thank you, guys.
Thank you.
So I don't know who this homeless person is, but I'm in favor of passing an ordinance and realizing the city. People come to the city from ancient times. They came to city for protection and for safety is why they chose to move into cities. And As you may see me, I'm sign waving for during campaigning, and had a homeless individual, and I don't know if it's the brother or not, but came up and was very aggressive and came up to me and put up his fist and said, "You want to fight? You want to get in a fist fight?" And I said, "No, I'm not interested." Then he turned to my 13-year-old grandson and got right up in him. Well, I got between him and my grandson. Then he walked down to my 16-year-old grandson and said the same thing. So it is a problem that needs to be dealt with, because we were minding our own business.
Thank you. So one thing, and I'm going to kind of mention the chamber deal here, because I went last week. One of the questions I asked the individual that was running for county commissioner, and I plan on going and asking again, what are the services as county commissioner that they look to provide for substance abuse, mental health issues, and those things? Unfortunately, Woodland, on our budget, we don't have the resources, the financial means to provide those. We need to use the resources of Cowlitz County. Unfortunately, Cowlitz County doesn't have the funding that Clark County does, but again, you know, and then you look at the resources with Longview and those things. But I encourage everyone in this room, get active, have conversations with the elected officials, just like you're coming here tonight. I mean, it doesn't stop here with the city. We need to keep having dialogue and advocating. Deanna and I don't always agree on things, and I mean, but I appreciate her coming tonight, advocating and having a dialogue and conversation. Again, everyone has a voice. Everyone deserves to be treated respectfully and rightfully. And how do we progress and do that as a community here? So there's no easy answers here. It's difficult, and it really is. But again, it's how do we, you know, pool our dollars, so to speak, with the counties and our state.
I have a question for Deanna. Do you get much resources from Cowlitz County?
Zero.
But you do from Clark?
We get nothing from anybody.
Really?
We self-fund, or the only housing funding is the city's document recording fees.
Okay.
That's it. But
Okay.
we literally get absolutely nothing.
And that's only $10,000. Let's not think that it's a
No,
ton of
it's
money. You know what I mean?
not.
That's
I know that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But there is absolutely nothing that comes down the pipeline of your tax dollars coming back to your county.
Okay. Well, I agree, we need to do something. But I don't know that fining somebody that already doesn't have money,
Yeah, that sounds.
you know, I don't know if that's the proper way to go about it, but we do have to do something, because we gotta protect the people that pay taxes in Woodland and also, so I wish we could come to a happy medium here, so.
I've got great sympathy for what Deanna says. That's a real problem that we're not going to solve here anytime soon, everywhere in the entire country. I see a bigger picture. We have 6,000 plus people in this community that we have to really take care of. And there are no good solutions that I can see without a whole lot of money coming from somewhere. I would ask our attorney, Emily, what is your hesitations over a version 2 versus version 1? Anything in particular that you have strong reservations on why we couldn't do 2?
So 2 was our proposal instead of 1. Anytime you're getting more specific, there's more opportunities for challenges. So the more generic one is a little bit more open-ended and subject to interpretation as far as enforcement goes. They're really not that dissimilar, though. So moving forward with either of them, I mean, one thing that we could do is look at other options or some sort of other step system instead of going to the findings after the review. there may be some other options out there. I'm trying to think some of my other cities and what they have done. I can look at those and bring those back as potential proposals as well. In addition, the police department may have some input on what's easiest to enforce also, because that's usually a big problem with these ordinances and everything.
I guess what I'm asking is what particular sections or what particular wording do you have reservations on?
I wouldn't say that I have reservations. I don't like giving specific risk advice in an open meeting. We're okay with either of these, which is why we've put them forward. Let's see.
Absolutely. I mean, we can have another workshop. I mean, what are you wanting to come back with?
I don't know, just more discussion on more resources we can come up with in the meantime.
Yeah.
Well, I think we need to do something fairly soon because we need to do something fairly soon, even if it's only the milder of the two solutions. We can always add to that in the future, I would suspect, but the longer we delay, I suspect that we will become more of an attraction. And my fear is for our existing community, the people that put us in office and expect us to protect them. And not that there's particular threat, but there is a potential, and not particularly from the people that are here now, but new folks coming in from anywhere and everywhere. The world is not a safe place. Folks that haven't been in a war, Vietnam, Afghanistan, World War II, really don't know what I'm actually saying. Those that if you do know, educate everybody else around you. We live in a dangerous, dangerous world. Things can happen on a split second that you would never guess, that you never suspect. And I think we need to take some prudent, very well thought out actions to help remediate or postpone them at least. I would not be in a position to defend the council's decision to not incorporate some sort of camping
I agree.
prohibitions on it. It's just we have to have something. We have to have something. And that's why I'm asking our attorney if there's a specific difference that she thinks would have more problems with. Because I would be inclined to go the more restrictive route personally.
Like I said, we've put forward both because both of them are something that I'd be willing to defend in court. I think, mirroring what Kalama has done is an appropriate step for City of Woodland, and we just wanted to make sure that council had all of the options available and that there were varying levels. I'm comfortable with version 1, which is the more restrictive one.
Yeah, last council, just say it, last council meeting, I mean, it was very directive, you all were. Get something right away, get something to us. So staff and I have worked very diligently here with, and so that's why I say we can come back with another workshop. I don't know if you all have proposals or whatever, but.
We can add stuff to it later, too.
I think my only question to you is, in seeing what other places have done, have you seen anything besides fines as consequences in other ones?
Generally not within the code language itself, because that's really the only thing that we can enforce through a legal mechanism.
Okay.
Some other cities have, like I said, adopted kind of either concurrent ordinances or other policy strategies to offer either some sort of wraparound services or other contact, such as, like I said, a community navigator, which has implemented, rental assistance programs, makes contact with the police in order to help provide those resources. Someone who's not law enforcement in the uniform that can sometimes be intimidating or set somebody with mental health issues off, but somebody who's a
But
little bit.
nothing we really have in Woodland to provide.
Right,
them.
and
Okay.
so those are really the options, is either kind of more wraparound or creative solutions that you have to think outside of these types of ordinances to implement.
So, my suggestion, I don't think we need to have another workshop. I think what is written is good. I think we're in agreement that maybe the fines are harsh for somebody who can't necessarily pay them anyways. I don't know if we can change the steps a little bit to be warning, or have them contacted to where we can get them the resources that we just were given today, like to contact them with the the recovery place, and then maybe even something like, maybe lower the fine, or along with community service, like, I don't know if we can do something. I think the wording of the actual ordinance itself is really good, and I would stick with the one that mirrors Kalama's. I think the only thing that we're in agreement with is that
The
the
fines.
fining, the part is the only discrepancy that we're having right now.
So if we do that, as you're suggesting, like, so we mimic the ordinance but then change the penalties, question for legal would be, does that open up risk because it's not exact, or are we okay if the ordinance is mimicking but then the penalties are less stringent?
Well, if the penalties are less stringent, that's actually going to be more protective of you, because that's less punishment on that end. But also it has a lot to do with the enforcement and, the actual implementation of those type of situations. But, we can certainly reduce the amounts.
If we're gonna have an ordinance, we need to make sure that we can punish it.
Right.
Exactly, exactly.
$1,000, you're not gonna be able to.
Right, wrong, or indifferent, the most phone calls, the most communication that I've gotten over the last 21 days coming into City Hall, coming into me directly,
Absolutely.
has been this topic here.
Right.
Right,
We have to do something.
No, absolutely,
I
and
mean-
that's why I think that, we've gone round and round. I think the only thing that we're suggesting is, I'm okay the way it's written. I think that just having something in place is a start, and if we wanna revisit that penalty later, just having something in place and still looking at options that we can do, I'm okay with that too.
I don't wanna set up our police officers for failure, though. That's
No.
tough for
Right,
them to say, oh,
absolutely.
here's an ordinance, you have nothing to punish, but chief, let us know how this works for y'all.
Right,
You
no,
know what I'm saying?
no, absolutely,
I mean-
that's why I'm saying,
You're never
like,
gonna see any of that fine money if you do find somebody, so it's.
But I don't think the fine, this isn't about the fine, this isn't about a revenue source for the city of
No,
Woodland.
no.
That's not what this is about at all.
no, I know, I'm okay with it the way it's written. I just think that if that's what's holding us up, then either we need to visit that alone, because I think everybody's in agreement that they're okay with the wordage of the actual ordinance. It's just that we're all up here stuck on that part of, if
I think we have to do something. So I guess I'm okay with one.
Yeah, me too. We have to do something, and we do have to have some deterrence. If we don't have the deterrence factor, might as well not have an ordinance at all. It needs to be well defined here.
I would like to see number one be the warning though, and I don't think it's words as a warning.
Terry?
Yeah, to me, the biggest issue is the public safety. That's number one, and that's why I think we have to consider the changes to the nuisance ordinance to be able to enforce removal of someone who poses a public threat. That has to happen first. That's number one. To solve the homeless situation, you're right, there's no easy answer. But somewhere around this state, they must have some resources that we could look at and look into, discuss, whatever. I wouldn't recommend Spokane. I know you mentioned Spokane, but Spokane's a wreck, and it's a they got a problem. They got a problem from the top down. It's a mess. Yeah, we want to look somewhere where they've had a little more success. See what's around.
They're sending $50 millions to Ukraine. Maybe we should get some of that money here.
All right.
So my suggestion.
Let's move forward.
Move forward with number one.
Okay.
And
I will have something here. Obviously, we're not here to take action.
Right.
Emily, I think she's nodding. She hears you. I hear you. I got a row of great
strengthen that
employees
sanitation.
that are hearing you as well. So, any other items related to this from anyone online or in the audience that wants to speak?
Yeah, Mike Rosenbaum here.
Yep, go ahead, Mike.
I'm not sure if changing that wording to a fine up to, so then there's discretion in the fine in the different 3 levels. And my only other comment is, I'm not real sure exactly where the city limits but I do know that there is a lot greater problem with unhoused people in the Woodland area than what we see. I know my brother-in-law, before he passed away, he used to go to these homeless camps to buy drugs and use drugs all the time. There's one on the other side of Lewis River behind AMPM, and there's 2 other ones down at the Columbia River down, if you go to Linda Dyke Road. Along there, there's 2 other big homeless camps down there. And they're kind of out of sight, out of mind, but I think the problem's a lot greater than people realize. So anyway, that's my 2 cents. Thank you.
No, thank you, Mike. Appreciate
Yeah.
you calling in.
I'd like to speak.
Go ahead, Meg.
Okay, thank you. I just would like to share that this year at the legislative session, they're again going to talk about the homeless, and there is a bill, I think, that may be up for discussion. I belong to the WILA. I belong to the Washington Housing Alliance, and they may have some suggestions because they look at the whole of Washington and how they have addressed situations like ours, and maybe even on a bigger scale. So I would suggest that maybe someone, give a chat up to them and see what's going on, and to follow the legislation coming through this year when they open up the session again. That would be my suggestion. I know the last couple of years they talked about homelessness and low-income housing, et cetera, and I think you may learn a great deal just by talking to some of the people up there. I believe Mary Thomas from Willa is a good person to talk to, and that's my suggestion. But I do agree that we have to be compassionate and we have to be realistic. They can't find someone money that they don't have to begin with. So fining doesn't necessarily, in my book, work. I don't know, maybe community service or something like that, but that's my suggestion. Thank you.
Thank you, Meg.
I just have a point of interest. The chamber has legislative phone calls when the session opens, and that's free to anybody to get online. And if you want to talk to your legislators, we talk to a different one from our area every week, every Tuesday morning. And so I would say get on the phone and start talking to them.
Tuesday at 7 a.m.
Yes.
Nice plug. So, okay. Any other comments, questions? Okay. Let's go into workshop item I, the budget. So we've had a little bit of conversation bringing up to this, said that we would kick off the budget discussion here in October. Attached is the letter I put together. I just want to walk through the preliminary items that in discussions with staff that I've recommended out of this budget. No tax increases, obviously. That will be one that we'll have a conversation with. Council, again, will approve the budget. These are just my recommendations. I tried to be very transparent here on how this budget was built. So the optional 1% property tax, which is right around $10,000 to $11,000. So then, you know, it's not something that I would propose increasing over the next 3 years of my term. So it would basically be about $44,000 by the end of this that we would have this here. So this budget assumes that that would be foregone. It assumes the 2024 water rate deferral that we just passed tonight. It eliminates the city administrator position. We haven't had that in 8 months. I think the department heads do a great job, great communication. I think it provides a lot more transparency to the city. They all know who to call. I'm always available. It's not one of those things where it's like, ooh. So my recommendation is keep that position eliminated. We have labor negotiations that are going on that start here with the Public Works and the clerical unions. Their contract expires December 31st. Again, obviously not showing our cards here on our negotiations and that, but built into this budget is assumptions for fair and reasonable wage increases. Our 20-some clerical and Public Works employees do a great job. I've done a lot of analysis around what they are paid versus what they are paid in Kalama versus La Center. Again, you get what you pay for, and we need to make sure that we pay and retain great employees. So the budget includes that. We have an interim chief here. So my plan here is in the next 2 to 3 weeks, I will go back to the guild where the chief won't be there, have a conversation with them. I want to get their views of how it's working, what's not working. I want to meet with the community, find out with them, and then I want to also offer up the city council to reach out to Chief Gibbs, have conversation, dialogue, and see how that looks, see if a long-term solution is the right fit for our community. Not saying it is or it isn't, but at the end of the day, when I have a conversation with Chief here, I have a conversation with the guild, they don't want that lieutenant position there anymore. And if you go back to the conversation of the January when we added it back in, Chief Kelly said he wanted it there because it was a position between him and the guild. Gibbs has a great relationship with those individuals, and they really like having that without it. So, and rather than taking those dollars, there was a 1% levy lid passed several years ago. This keeps that dollars there. It increases the police department by 2 positions. Obviously, we'll get further into that. Something for the community to think about, council to think about. There are times where we don't have 2 officers on duty at the same time. We're running around with just 1 officer. At the same time, there's additional training and equipment for our police officers. The officers have come to me with an MOU to increase some of their benefits, not health insurance type benefits, but longevity, those types of benefits. When you look at what our police department is, and I realize they got a 21% rate increase. Last year it was an 8%, 6%, and a 2%. 8% was there, but 2% of that is to carry a body camera. So really they got a 6%, a 4%, and a 0% raise over the next 3 years. You look at what our police department's making versus what other departments around us are making, it is one of those things that's an eye-opener to us. We need to get officers that want to come here, want to start out, have a career. We need to make it so our officers can afford to live in Woodland. A lot of discussions I've been having with the guild. So I put some of that assumption in there. Obviously an MOU will be coming forward, having those conversations with them. When I say training and equipment, we'll get really into the police department budget, but it's putting an individual on the SWAT team. That's something that the individuals, the guild has been really looking into. You know, you don't automatically get someone there. You have to apply, and it's one of those things that it would be nice to have the city of Woodland there. Continuation of Exit 21, we signed that dollars. Harper dollars last year from Cowlitz County, we're still working on that. 2026, we should have our preferred choice, whether it'll be signals or roundabouts, so it continues with that. Implementation of utility billing, so Tyler Tech is plugging along. Amanda's done a great job with Trish and a few of the other individuals in the office, getting us ready to transition over into this new software. The budget includes dollars for utility billing next year. Again, we will have a conversation whether we want to do that or not to do that. What is council's preference? I've been very open. I want to do what's best for our community. I think having someone locally and with the least cost is what should be happening there. So that has been included in there. And then when you look at some of the things that we need around here, there's a new roof that the Horseshoe Lake Shelter needs. Again, needs to be taken off the shingles down to the plywood. It's kind of an extensive job. So there's money for that. There's there's the foundation at the community center. We've talked about that in our workshop back in March, about the flooring and the rotting that's going out there. And then also the conversion of the old library. It needs to become ADA accessible. Right now it's not to code. So if we want to rent out that downstairs space, we will need to do that as well. Also included in the budget, a little bit different direction on how we do things. 4 projects, road improvement projects are in there. In the previous administration, they would put grant dollars in there before they were assumed, or they would assume that they were going to be received. The dollars would be in the budget, and if we didn't get them, we would be scrambling. This budget has been built that we don't have those grant dollars in there, the matching. We put those dollars, the matching dollars in here and said, hey, this is what we're going to do. So if grant comes in, we'll move forward. I really want us to live within our means here. So any questions on that message? Fire away.
Going back to the lieutenant position, if we do not retain Mr. Gibbs for the chief, I do not want him to be without a position. So that's the only way I would agree to that, is if that position stayed available for him to go back to if he's not selected as chief.
Chief, I think you got a friend in your corner over here. I absolutely agree with you, Carol. I appreciate those comments, and that's why I want to have the decision of what we do with chief. And I mean, I don't mean to make it awkward for you sitting there, Gibbs, but I want us to have a decision so that we can go forward with this budget, and he's not left in limbo, our community's not left in limbo, hey, what are we doing?
How long do we have to make a decision? Like, can we choose to make him the permanent?
We could make him a chief tomorrow. I mean, it's one of those things where the mayor just needs to make a recommendation and council approves it. I'm of the type, I wanted to make sure that it was something that our community was working here before we just leaped into that. But if council were to make a motion or whatever, I mean, I can certainly go that route, and I can work on a contract. Again, no action item here, but the goal is, before we get into this workshop and these heavy budgets in the first part of November, end of November, we will have a decision on, is he gonna be a lieutenant or is he gonna be a chief?
So if, I'd like to make a discussion and a proposal for something in the budget. When do you want?
You can do that now. We're in a workshop. If there's things that you say, hey, it would be great, I mean, we can go back to the drawing board and see where we can get funding and dollars and
Okay.
things. So, yeah.
Before she gets into that, though, why don't we finish the discussion about the chief?
Okay.
I think that we're pretty much all in agreement. You've been working for months with the guild, so you know the heart and thought there. And they've known the chief for, I mean, he's been here for a long time. They know him. He's been part of it. So I don't think there's a lot of research that needs to happen from this point. So I would really like to see us move forward with that decision of permanence.
Okay, no action I'm out of here because, again, we're not here, but I hear what council is saying.
Sooner the better.
Yeah.
Okay.
that's all. Yeah, go ahead.
Perfect. I appreciate you all being candid with me and telling me what to do. I'm being sincere there, so thank you. Go ahead
Okay.
now.
So, couple of things. I know that the LTAC committee met, and they have approved LTAC dollars to go out to certain things. And it's more money going out than what was coming in.
So LTAC, we have in the budget recommending, from the committee, from, the, applications was $70,000 of funding, or of spend, and about $60,000 of dollars coming in. And let's be clear, just so people know, heads and beds, so it's a tax on hotel rooms, hotel motel.
And so I know that we have our civic center that we're still trying to figure out what exactly we wanted to do with that. And I know we have talked about throwing around ideas. We have talked about potentially bringing Welcome Center back to city side instead of it being a chamber side. Well, today, in talking with, hold on, gotta flip to the right page. In talking with DWR's Adonica, we can get, if we get a full-time employee within the city that does the Washington State Main Street program for revitalization, they can co-do a visitor center or welcome center, and they can get all kinds of money to help revitalize our downtown that our DWR program can't qualify for because they are not a city employee with that program. And they can also be an event coordinator for anything that we do through our downtown within the city. And we can eliminate the money that we're giving to the Chamber of Commerce and let the chamber just concentrate on rebuilding their chamber program and take something off of their plate and bring this back into the city and use our new building as a big, strong entrance to our city that allows us to really restart revitalizing our entire downtown.
Okay. Just in addition to the city being able to get funds from the, I think it's Main Street program, the business owners also have access to funds that they wouldn't otherwise have by us participating in that
Main
program.
Street program, this is a state program, is that?
Do you have the detailed
It's
sheet?
Washington State Main Street Program for Revitalization is what it's called. And then we have a contact through the CEDC, which is the Economic Development Council, a lady who has done several of these programs and is now currently working with Kelso to do this, who has done an amazing job revitalizing some major cities,
You have to get
downtowns.
you have to get the owners on board, the buildings, because there are a lot of people down there that just don't do anything
Right.
with their buildings.
But this works for even the current businesses that are down there. And it will allow, this person is allowed to work with realtors, real estate, all kinds of things within the community that nobody else is able to do. And it brings in money into our program that we can't qualify without this position. But it also allows us to use our brand new building to be a hub where this person can be stationed from, and we can create this wonderful welcome center to get our town recognized and push towards the downtown. And that was one of the things that was brought up today, that we're not directing people to our downtown anymore, that the traffic's not flowing that way, that it's just not, we're not pushing it. And
So a lot to unpack here, so I just wanna make sure I understand what you got going on here.
yes,
So, you wanna take the visitor center, the community, the civic center, whatever we wanna call that
Yes.
white building that's sitting there. You want to put a City of Woodland employee in there. Open it up as and call it a visitor center that would
Welcome
be
center, whatever,
whatever, and it
yes.
would be open 8 to 5, Monday through Friday. I don't know what you do about Saturday and Sunday. They would
Correct.
they would be a city employee, you're saying.
Mm-hmm.
We would have, and I might be getting into the minutia here, but I'm just trying to visualize this here, and I apologize. So then we would sell woodland merchandise, we would have pamphlets, we would direct everything there. So that piece of chamber you would be taking, and we would say, hey, the city's going to do that.
Yes. And we can even use
And so
our-
the 50,000 that's been recommended by the LTAC committee to
Right.
chamber, you're saying, pull that back.
I am, because I don't believe that we're really getting a lot of heads and beds currently from that. Based on the numbers that we have going through there. And that I think the chamber right now needs to focus on getting more to the meetings and things and focus that I think they're going through maybe some growing pains and work on board stuff right now. That I think this is something that is good for Woodland and that would be really strong for us to build our city.
So hold on one second. Hey, Amanda. LTAC, when LTAC committee approves and says, hey, this is our spending we're going, that's what I baked into this budget. So then does it come to council and as a separate item, or is it just,
It's approved it with the budget.
it gets approved with the budget? So council would have to vote on, I'm just trying to figure out where this whole thing, and you had something to say now, Ms. Rose, sorry.
Yes, I was gonna say, if you hire a full-time employee to do that, you're costing a heck of a lot more than $50,000 by the time you pay all the benefits and everything. Plus, they're not open on Saturday and Sunday. And then that's when most of the visitors come in on Saturday and Sunday. I don't like the idea at all, I'm sorry. That's my feeling.
Speaking to the
Does
mic,
it-
sir.
There's a report put out by the chamber every year, gives you the count, and I wonder if anybody's looked at that.
The last one that I sit and do math here, and when Keith does it, when he says if there's, I believe it's roughly 5 people a day, if you were to average it, 150 people a month.
I disagree with that number.
Do you have it offhand, Keith, how many people came last month?
Yeah.
No, and I don't have that number. I'll probably have it tomorrow.
Yeah, I disagree with the number, because when I was there, it was quite a bit more.
People that came into the
Yeah.
building?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Okay. Keith, can you shoot me an email or shoot?
Sure.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, just as a reference point, I appreciate
Well,
it, sir.
And I don't think that the chamber's currently gonna plan on staying in their current building.
I have not heard back from Chamber what they're doing.
I haven't heard anything.
We're moving forward,
Right.
assuming that they're not coming into our building.
And so I just think this is a good opportunity for us to look at moving forward and growing. Something that I continuously hear from people in town saying, hey, let's get our downtown back up and running. Let's get it back up and running. Let's get it back to what it used to be. And I think this is a good way that we can get money back into our downtown and use this incredible building that we have. And if we can build it into our budget, it is worth looking at for our businesses that are currently there to be able to revitalize themselves as well. Also, I think it's a good way for us to even partner with our schools that are doing CTC programs and also have.
Did you say CTC?
CTC, which is, we have a floral department, we have woodworking, we have metal shop, we have all kinds of different things, t-shirts, DECA, all these things. We even have, the Kiwanis are now want us to start a key club that is doing, volunteer hours and those kind of things and maybe we can even get volunteers in there on the weekends that could help the visitor center and get some of those things to get learn some of that. We have a business marketing team, like things that we can partnership some of these programs and get our teens involved and help run that. I mean, even speaking with Asha, she's excited about the opportunity that these kids could have this joint opportunity within the city to do. I think help them get that buy-in that this is a great opportunity. We talk about partnering with these entities we have, the police department, the schools, the port. I think this is a great opportunity for us to use a building and grow our town, to bring it back and revitalize something that we have and use opportunities for us to do so, and to have somebody that could even be an event coordinator and
So,
that can help us.
the budget currently has the assumption in there that we would rent out that building, just like we do the community center, and that's how it's built and derived. Again, I will be happy to go create a side-by-side budget here of what it would look like. My question here is, and I don't know the answer, I'm looking for expertise, you know, my partner in crime here, Carol, is with LTAC, can you, if you had a position that was purely running the visitor center, can you use that $50,000 from LTAC and give it to the city? So we would be moving it from the LTAC fund and moving it over into the general fund, and we move it to, I mean, I know there's ways to move it, but I mean, can we do that? Go ahead, Terry.
Yeah, you just, I think, described the problem. It's big, and it's gonna take a lot of time and research. I don't think the budget now is the time to be looking at this. I think we've got a budget to get through in the next month, and I think we should stay with what we've got. If Melissa wants to pursue this and get the information, get the background, and really get some other examples from other cities and get all that detail. It's just a lot to it, and then bring it back. Maybe we would work something out in the future, but I just don't think now's the time to be looking at this.
I mean, I guess my showstopper in this whole thing, and I'm not saying one way or the other, I'm just, y'all tell me what you want me to do, and I'll go get behind a computer and start working. My question here is, and the showstopper is, if you were to say, hey, that LTAC dollars can't be used for that position, that would be us going and finding a new position, and spending the $50,000, and that's where I would sit there and I think, okay, what do we want to cut, or what do we think is not a priority? Because I'm going to look over here at staff. So we had an individual give their notice on Friday, our code enforcement individual. So we have no code enforcement officer, and that position was doing the permit as well. Right now we have it in the budget to backfill. Travis and I had a dialogue and conversation, and we have a person who does development. And if you look at our budget, there's about $40,000 to $50,000 of development. For years, our city was doing development type, and we had no real housing. Now we've all of a sudden got these housing developments going on, and development is, so it's flipped here, kind of a deal. But we've always had these two positions, and it's like, hey, do we merge those together? So Maylene's position that we hired last December, I believe, you know, we would have to work with the union and negotiate. Do we have that person do code enforcement, the building permitting, and all that? So that's why I say staff is doing a great job saying, hey, let's think outside the box on these things. And this is one here where I just would need to find out, can $50,000 from LTAC go there? Otherwise, I'm looking and going, hey, we'd have to find it somewhere and dig. So, does anybody know in the room? I mean, Amanda's leaving on maternity leave tonight, here in 3 hours, so.
You know, I'm like Terry, Mr. Paul. We've got a budget to get through that's too much to even think about going into for this year. There's too many ifs, ands, or buts. You know, there's just a lot to go on, and we don't even know whether legally you could use that $50,000 for that. Plus, it's gonna cost you a heck of a lot more than $50,000 for an employee for that. So you're gonna have to still yet look, even if you get the 50, you're gonna have to still yet look for other funds for that position. So I think it's not anything we wanna worry about this year. If she wants to dig into it and do some more checking, we can look at it next year, but it's just too short this year.
I don't know if we should really be trying to like bring in a bunch more people. I think we have enough people in the town. I think we need to get it under control with what we have now. Besides trying to turn it into like Camas or Ridgefield, I don't think that's the direction people really want to go here.
Okay. Any other conversation about my message here before I go into the next action item? I'll get back. I mean, again, just like anyone that brings up, I will go do the research on the LTAC and I will, let you all know.
Mayor,
I never like to say things are too tough.
I can answer that question.
I'm sorry, I should, thank you.
Sorry, it's new having me here. So you can use LTAC funds for supporting the operations and capital expenditures of tourism-related facilities. If this is a visitor center or something, I think technically that would fall within the definition. You may have to go back to I'd have to reread your code, but you may have to go back to the LTAC committee to get that proposal and recommendation back to the council. In addition, are you talking about the Main Street program through the Department of Archaeology and Historic Preservation?
Probably. Main Street program for revitalization, so is what they told me.
Okay.
But yes.
Yeah, so, and to kind of explain.
But they said it has to be a full-time city employee to qualify.
Melissa, didn't they also mention that it could be a split position? So it's a
Yes,
full-time,
it can
like it's an
be
FTE,
both.
but they could do multiple
Yes,
things.
they can do both positions.
Yeah, and just to kind of explain the tax implications on that one, the businesses can apply for a tax credit, so any B&O tax that the businesses apply then gets rerouted to the city for revitalization purposes, and then they don't have to pay that to the state instead. So that's how that rerouting of the funding works.
So a local business would apply.
Right.
It would be downtown, and so instead of their B&O going to the state, they could use it.
They get a credit then, and then it's rerouted to the city. So that's how it's done. But it's a credit, so it's not a one-for-one. You have to pay the tax 1 year and say that I'm going to donate this to this certain entity or organization or program, and then the next year you get a credit back on that, and you don't have to go. It doesn't have to go to the state.
Yeah, so it's a 1 year lag.
Right. So the first year is a little harder on the businesses, but that's how you get the rerouted funds into your community from the local businesses. And it does take, there are certain steps and everything. I know one of my cities who recently did it, it took about 9 to 12 months to get all of the pieces in place to implement that, and now they're in the phase of trying to get all of the businesses to apply for that tax credit. But there are additional resources and everything that I can connect you with. That's something you want to explore more.
So right out of the gate, 9 to 12 months. So the Main Street piece would not be in place.
But you have to have the employee in place to start getting that done.
You have to become accredited first.
Sorry, I don't want to interrupt, but listening to your question, because I'm sorry I can't help you helpful.
Hey,
Read that right.
Deanna, go to the podium.
Okay.
Come on, be part of the conversation.
Oh, you guys slay me. LTAC dollars, because I know the answer to this question. Tourism marketing and operations of special events and festivals designed to attract tourism. Operations and capital expenditures of tourism-related facilities, like she mentioned, owned or operated by a municipality or a public facilities district, including repayment of general obligation bonds or revenue bonds for eligible capital projects, and operations of tourism-related facilities owned or operated by a nonprofit organization, right? Which I think the chamber is a nonprofit, which is why that partnership had always happened. And then I don't really want to be, I didn't want to interrupt, but you had the question, and so I wanted you to have the answer of if you could take that money and move it. But the other thing I would be concerned with is you want, Council Member Dowdy wants to partner the city with an organization who during COVID, I think Council Member Rounds would be the only one here that would remember this, that council voted to give them money for a specific thing, and then that COVID dollars for that specific thing, and then that specific thing never materialized because their board decided to use that money on something else. And they don't have a functional website. And the only reason I went to one of their meetings in January was to try and find what they ever did with that, because I was told a lot of conflicting things when I asked.
Okay, you're gonna have to be a little more direct. I'm slow to the
So there
draw
were,
here.
so no, there were COVID dollars
Yep.
that council had to spend,
Uh-huh.
right? The state was like, here, you have this, and you can only use
And
it
we
on
spend
this.
it on an air conditioning
On
unit
all
here,
kinds of
it's
stuff,
rainy
like,
well, yeah, I got
because
it.
council was given 30 days that they had to dump it,
Yep.
right? So,
I hate the word dump.
but
dollars,
yes,
yeah.
but it effectively was find things to dump this money into or give it back, because it was money the city never asked for. So one of those things was, movies in the park. And they had, an issue with not being they wanted to kind of turn it into a drive-in movie with a PA system and stuff so people could hear better. So council specifically voted to give Downtown Woodland Revitalization, like, I think, don't quote me, I think it was like $30,000.
It'll show up on the Voice of Woodland, don't worry
Yeah,
about it.
I know.
30,000.
But I kind of feel like it was $30,000. And then I kept asking and kept asking and kept asking, hey, did you get that PA? Hey, did you get that PA? Hey, did you get that PA system? And then at one point, Ms. Coleman, who was part of Woodland Revitalization, but was also the Public Works Director and in charge of movies in the park, said, no, the board decided to do something else with that. And I said, you can't do that. And that was ex parte, outside of a council meeting. It was after a meeting, and I cornered her, and I was like, where'd that money go? Because I haven't seen any word of a PA system. And then I cornered her again in January at that DWR meeting. And I cannot remember what she said. But she was like, no, I didn't, I don't think she said, no, I didn't say that. But I've never found what they did with that money. Because if you look on their website, they don't have a functional website. Miss Miller, I think still is the admin of that, and she's no longer with that organization. But I've looked, because I've always wanted to know what happened to that money, was because I never saw a PA system. So, I don't want to throw them under the bus, but I would be very careful before I tie the city with an organization
It would not
in
tie 'em.
that
It
way.
would not tie 'em with that.
And I can appreciate that. There's a lot of things that are
Okay,
where I'm like,
and
where'd that money go?
secondly,
But-
historically, if I remember correctly, and Ms. Rounds might remember, is the reason DWR did not get part of that kind of thing is because then historical designation for buildings in the city then also ties you to what you can and cannot do to the building. And the only reason I know this is because I asked, because Woodland Action Center's over 100 years old. And I thought maybe that's an avenue we could pursue to get funding. So back to answer your other question, I am so sorry. I just it was killing me because I saw the answer and I thought you would like
Yeah,
to know the
it's all
answer.
good. Don't
So-
apologize.
But there you go.
You're part of the community, you're part of the conversation.
Anyway.
Be part.
I'll be back.
All right.
Glad we didn't
all right.
say that.
Any other questions? Because it sounds like you can use those dollars for operations if there's a new position. Okay.
Mhm.
Any other questions on that message? And I'll move into the next item, budget calendar. All right, budget calendar is also attached in here. Kind of lays out what we got going on. So October 14th, I put if necessary, October 28th, if necessary. Right now, October 14th is a no-go. I don't see any reason. If we couldn't come up with a balanced budget, or staff was coming up with things that just weren't gonna be doable, that's where I say, hey, let's get together with council and figure out what's going. Based on that, I say no. Meeting the 21st, our next council meeting, we'll have a little bit more discussion, And if you feel like we need to have a workshop on the 28th, we certainly can. But that's the reason that's on there. And then you can see where we put things out in the notices. But really, the real big action item is the 4th of November, is where we will have a discussion about the 1% property taxes piece there. But I wanted you all to know how the budget was assumed and what I would hope that we could do as a team. Okay? Any questions on the budget calendar? Hopefully the community members will come, speak up, give their opinions. Action item, or workshop item K, preliminary budget expenditures and revenues. You can see here, 20 pages are here. It all balances, revenues, funds, expenditures, the $36 million. I threw in what 2022 was, I threw in what 2023, 2024 actuals, 2024 budget, and 6 months of actuals, so we can see what's there. So if you have questions, comments on that, feel free to reach out. We will get more into this as we go along. Any questions on that? Okay, moving into workshop item L, pay and benefits. Handy dandy schedule here that has every single employee that works for the city on here. And that is their pay, their benefits, schedule, and it is how the budget was designed in here. And with that, is there any questions on the budget? Or any questions or comments with regard to things from tonight and the workshop before we close out workshop? Go ahead,
You
sir.
did on the police, you kind of mentioned adding officers because of the just kind of lack of officers in the city. Is that included in here under the vacant officers?
Yes, so you see vacant officers, there's 3. We do have 3 vacant officers right now that we're looking to fill. We're very close to making an offer on 1. And then we have 2 that will be still vacant. And then that's why you can see proposed position in 2025 down there. Right, you have 2 of those there. And also in the budget is 3 vehicles so that everyone continues to have a vehicle.
Okay. And so if approved, is it January that we could start pursuing? I mean, obviously we have 3 open that we can pursue now, or 2.
We're pursuing very much with 3. Kudos to, again, Chief, I don't wanna, sound like, but we've got several more applicants since we've been making these changes around here. A lot more applicants have come in and we have a lot better prospects in getting those positions filled, whereas we've been going most of the year on vacant and running a lot of overtime.
So it'd be January though that they could start? 'Cause
On the 2 proposed, yes.
I got to meet with Chief and just kind of hearing the life cycle of hiring somebody, I was kind of, quite the process to get an officer actually in a car.
Yeah, and just so you know, I mean, with that hiring, we eliminated the $20 application fee that officers are required to pay.
So, really?
We charge people $20 to apply for us.
Yeah, up until a month ago.
What the city was doing it, we did, I think the police
Yeah,
department was.
that's been eliminated, so. Okay, does that answer your questions?
Yes, thank you.
Uh-huh. Okay. Any other questions, comments? Nope. All right, the time is now 9:13 and we will leave workshop and go back into our city council meeting.
Make a motion to end the meeting?
I'll second that.
The time is now 9:13. Good night, everyone.